And we are back. What's up, everyone? You notice that the Christmas tree is not here because it's no longer Christmas. We're in 2025, unfortunately. Birthday's coming up in a few days. Going to be turning 29, which is never fun, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not excited about getting old or having any existential crisis about turning 30. I feel like 30 is by no means old, okay? Like, it's not old. It's not old but it's just not old. Everyone's saying 20 is the new 30s, etc. I just feel like 30s is the realization that you're getting old. I feel like when you hit your 30s, when you hit that 30 threshold, you kind of start to realize, like, hey, I'm not as young as I once was, or I'm not going to stay young forever, And I feel like realistically, you're supposed to have fun in your 20s, of course, but grind in your 20s so that you can live a good life in your 30s or a better life in your 30s, because now you have more money, which I've done that. So shout out to me. But yeah, I'm still not happy about being in my 30s, to be honest. But we'll see how it goes. I still got one more year left, so I got to go out this year with a bang. But yeah, we're in 2025. Happy New Year to you all. I know the setup is a little different. The setup is extremely bland right now. It's just me, a freaking white wall with the Millennium Falcon. I know you can see it. I know you like that. The Millennium Falcon painting in the background that my dad gave me for Christmas, I think, one year. But I'm going to be switching around. I'm still playing around with how I want to structure the podcast as far as visually goes. Because in my last podcast, around 6 MMA Talk, it was entirely audio, so I didn't have to worry about visual whatsoever. But now that I have to worry about visual, I'm still determining like how I want to, do this thing. So I feel like for my last one, for the last couple episodes, the setup that I had, it's not technically bad. It's just a little annoying kind of to set up, to take apart, etc. So I do admit that the setup is not amazing. I want to improve upon it. I feel like, the camera right in front of you, a couple inches away, it's so generic for podcasting, I feel. But I'm going to spice it up. My tripod fucking sucks. It's way too high right now. This is the lowest setting it could possibly be, so I'm definitely going to be getting a new one if I want to continue sitting down and kind of having the podcast structure like this. But I'm going to be playing around with it. Maybe I'll do it the same way I did the last couple episodes. Maybe I'll do it this way going on, just, making it look a little better. But the reason why I did it this time around too, and this like structure and setup, is because yesterday I set everything up. It was the old podcast setup with me, the gray chair, the bookshelf, the painting right above me, etc. And literally once I sat down to start recording, my entire building lost power. We don't know why my building lost power. We have no freaking clue. I'm guessing like a rat chewed one of the cables and it just fogged everything up. But whole building lost power, man. It fucking sucked. So I had lost power for a couple hours. Thankfully, by end of the night, I got it back on. But dude, like, imagine you doing all that work to set up and then fucking everything is ruined. So I didn't feel like doing all that setup today, and that's why I am sitting down in front of my camera, like less than a foot away. So yeah, there's the Pitre podcast. And this episode, we're going to be discussing the UnitedHealthcare scandal. So the CEO being murdered by Luigi Mangione, which is the most Italian name of all time. The GOAT Luigi. So basically, we're just going to be discussing like why Luigi committed the crime, who is Luigi, Brian Thompson, what did he do to kind of, I don't want to say deserve, but what actions led to the cause of his death, a little information into like the whole insurance business in America, and last but not least, did Brian Thompson deserve to die? So we're going to be going over all that on the podcast. Now, this was a tricky one for me because I was trying to manage my biases, because personally, I think of everything, all that happened in one way, but I know that it's just me trying to look at things black and white and there's more gray to it. But in case you guys have been living under a rock for the past few weeks, or you're just not American, you don't live in America. So we have insurance companies, okay? So the American healthcare system is horrendous. So if I want to go see a doctor, go to the hospital, need an ambulance, etc., I need insurance. And the insurance covers most of the cost of the bill. Now, I know what you're thinking, like that sounds amazing. It's not at all. So the insurance is supposed to cover most of the bill. So if I go to a doctor's and it was $10,000, then hopefully the insurance will cover, $9,900 of it. And I'm only paying $100 out of pocket or something like that. The issue is, one, the healthcare industry, everything is priced so outlandishly high because no one is setting boundaries as far as what you can or cannot price anything at. So for instance, like an IV bag, which is just like saline water, which they can make for literally less than $3. A lot of hospitals will write it off as $10,000, so you're paying for something that takes $3 to make, but they're charging at $10,000 because they're going to charge that to the insurance companies because they want to make as much money as possible. So there's a lot of fraud as far as like not showing what the cost of things are, and which is a whole other issue on and of itself, which I'm not going to tackle too much on this episode. But not only that, a lot of the insurance companies would deny claims, which means that they're denying you coverage. So in order for me to get insurance, one is either provided by my employer. So if I'm working a job, most jobs provide some form of insurance. And as far as coverage, it can vary. So you can have like a lot of coverage. So basically they're fucking covering just about everything. Or you can have a little bit of coverage where they're covering just about nothing. And typically if it's covered by the employer is out of pocket, but from pre-tax dollars. So it's not money that's technically coming out of my paycheck after taxes. The money is coming out of my paycheck before tax. So possibly at the end of the year, my taxes would be a lot less, or the taxes I get back from the government would be less because this money is coming out of my taxes, etc. But if you don't go in that route, or if you're self-employed, etc., you can just buy insurance outright. So you're paying for it out of pocket right through your salary or however you're getting your money. And there are times where even though you're paying insurance, whether it be out of pocket or not out of pocket, there's times where they deny you coverage. So they can just straight out say, hey, we don't want to cover this for whatever reason. Like literally any reason under the sun, they could be, we do not want to cover this. Like you're on your own, bucko. Like I know you pay us every single month, but the one time you got sick, we're just not going to cover you. And that's the real issue or that Americans are having with the healthcare system, the insurance companies as of right now, that's kind of getting out of hand, and is partially the reason why Brian Thompson was unfortunately murdered. But to go into the murder in depth, just a little background for you guys regarding insurance in America. Okay, so the shooting occurred on early December 4th, which has only been like a month ago, which is pretty shocking. I felt like this happened like back in October. So Brian Thompson, he arrived at the Hilton Hotel on the West 54th Street. So those of you who are not familiar with New York City geography, West 54th Street is one of the most busiest areas in all of New York. New York is extremely busy as a whole. Any street you go down New York, there's going to be multiple people walking on the sidewalks, driving by, etc. 54th Street is kind of like the mecca as far as shopping goes. So a lot of like the most expensive shops are in 54th Street. A lot of the most expensive real estate in New York is around that Midtown Manhattan area. So it's extremely busy all times of the day. Literally any time of the day is going to be busy. So he arrived at the Hilton Hotel at West 54th Street. He was preparing for UnitedHealthcare Investors Day gathering. Now, those type of events are basically just the investors ask the CEOs and the executive a ton of questions. Those questions being, how can we make more money, basically? How can we cut costs, basically? And then the executives of the company basically try to devise ways to either lay off staff, cut costs, charge more for insurance in this case, how can we deny more people coverage? Because in denying people coverage, they save money. Because covering someone is a little expensive on the insurance company's part. So if you're able to deny coverage in any form, any shape or form, you can save on the cost and you can net more of the overall revenue that people are paying your company for that coverage. That's the reason why these companies want to deny as much coverage as humanly possible without like causing an uproar, which in this case it did. So that's basically the shareholder meeting. Why is it fucking 5 a.m? I have no freaking clue. It was like 5, 6 in the morning. Why are you having a shareholder meeting that early? You can't just do it like at 9 a.m, you know, like a fucking normal human being. Anyway, so Luigi Mangione was actually waiting outside that Hilton hotel for Brian Thompson to arrive, and it stated that he was scoping out that area for a couple of days before the shooting actually happened. So he let a few other passersby, move on. When he finally spotted Brian Thompson, he gave him, I believe, 3 shots in the back. I want to say 3 or 4 shots in the back. Luigi Mangione was wearing like a dark hooded jacket, a gray backpack, and a black mask covering his face. Shot Brian Thompson in the back. He approached him to fire again, and it seems like he had a gun that was fitted with a silencer, which if you ever see someone shoot someone with a silencer or a crime that's committed with a silencer, it's entirely on purpose. It's not accidental. Like, no one is going to use a silencer to just kill like a random civilian. They're targeting this person for one reason or another. So that's what really caused, such an uproar, like surprised so many people, is that if it was just like a regular gun, yeah, it's weird. He was most likely targeted, but who knows? But if it's a silencer, it's like, yeah, this guy was straight up assassinated. But after you shoot him 3 times in the back, he walked towards him. Looks like he was going to shoot him again. Ended up didn't doing it. He ran across the street, got on the city bike. Most fucking New York thing of all time, jumping on a city bike after the scene of a crime is the most New York thing imaginable. Love it. He rode his bike back to Central Park. People who don't know New York City geography, Central Park is fucking humongous. Like, Central Park engulfs, like, it's in the very middle of New York City. It spans from that 50th Street range all the way until like 110th. So it goes like 50 city blocks. I want to say it's at least like 1/4 to 1/5 of Manhattan, which Manhattan's pretty big. So Central Park, it's pretty big. There's definitely bigger parks out there in the world, city parks out there in the world, but Central Park's pretty big. Like, if you run into Central Park after a scene of a crime, like, there's a good chance that they're not going to find you, etc. You can get out of the situation, which is exactly what he did. So he biked into Central Park, and then took the train or took a cab back up to the Upper West Side, which is where he was staying at. And then he took I believe a Greyhound bus to Pennsylvania, where he was caught. Basically, there was McDonald's employees that said that Luigi Mangione resembled a killer, and called the police on him. Police arrived at the scene. When police checked him, he had the murder weapon, the manifesto, etc., which was basically confirming his identity as the killer. The reason why we're able to find out his identity is after the killing, as he was walking somewhere, forgot where, and like a lady told him to take the mask down because he looks cute. She wants to see his face, and he did. First off, bro, why? You just murdered someone. Like, why are you gonna flirt? It's like, it's like 7 a.m. too. Like, it's too early for that. But not only that, it's like, and it's not the most clearest picture either. It's pretty blurry. I'm not saying that they got the wrong guy, because I don't know. But it's pretty blurry, and the fact that someone was able to recognize him so easily from such a blurry picture is actually pretty shocking. But either way, they found all that stuff on him. It's hard to say you're not the guy when you literally have the tools that was on the scene of the murder. So that's why he's currently in custody and is being tried. So that's the murder and how it happened. Regarding who Luigi Mangione is, so I did some background into Luigi Mangione. He's in his mid-20s. He was born and raised in Maryland. Apparently, his family is very, very well known within Maryland. I believe they have like a bunch of what's that? Where's the places that rich people go to just to hang out and bullshit? Country clubs. apparently like his parents own like a bunch of country clubs, etc. So he's very well known within the Baltimore, Maryland area. He went to high school at the Gilman School, all private boys school institution in Baltimore. He was an athlete, pretty jacked guy, pretty fit guy, displayed a keen interest in developing in video games, was a valedictorian and graduated in 2016, so he was a couple years younger than I am. He went to the University of Pennsylvania. Shout out to the University of UPenn, bro. It's a couple blocks away from me right now. I play soccer in their freaking public grounds all the time, so the fact that he went to UPenn is actually pretty crazy. He graduated in 2020 with a bachelor's degree and a master's in engineering. He also majored in computer science. And so Stanford University confirmed that he has been employed as the head counselor in the pre-collegiate studies program from May through September of 2019. So after college, Mangione worked for and had internships in several tech companies, including his LinkedIn profile and the former employer. He had been a member of the Hub Co-working Hawaii, a co-working space in Kokako neighborhood of Honolulu. According to his co-founder, he often come in with his peers from Surf Break, a co-living space for digital nomads and remote workers with a location in Honolulu. He was in contact with friends and family up until 6 months ago. So basically that was kind of like his life up until the events of the murder. 6 months prior to the events of the murder, he kind of just like went rogue a little bit. Like he stopped like responding to his friends and family members. His friends and family members were like kind of, worried about him. Like I know he had to go to like a friend's wedding and his friend reached out to him like, yo, like where are you? Like, yeah, I haven't heard from you in months. Like, are you still coming, etc. And apparently while he was in Hawaii, he received like a really bad accident to his back. So he has like constant back pains that he needed surgery for back in 2023. And since then he struggled with like basic like brain fog. So he had like a kind of hazy memory, if you will. And that could lead to the reason why, his actions were so violent. Maybe, the injury and the pain and that kind of stuff kind of pushed him over the edge, if you will. We don't know. We have to, hear from him in order to determine that. But that's kind of who he was, who the killer was. And then go into too much details, not too much detail into like his upbringing and that kind of stuff. Just like some general information, if you will. Now, to go over the CEO, so Brian Thompson, he lived in Maple Grove, Minnesota. So he became the UnitedHealthcare chief executive in April 2021. He spent more than 20 years in the company, so he really moved up the ranks into UnitedHealthcare. And UnitedHealthcare is the biggest insurance company in the U.S. It employs over 140,000 people. So he received a total compensation of $10.2 million in 2023. The company's profits actually rose on his watch, jumping from $12 billion to $16 billion. But amid that growth, there was a lot of controversy and scrutiny. And a lot of that was coming from lawmakers and regulators who accused the UnitedHealthcare of systematically refusing authorized healthcare procedures and treatments. So basically, the reason why they were being so scrutinized is one, they're the biggest insurance company in the U.S., and two, they were starting to deny claims. They were starting to deny procedures. They were starting to deny treatments to the people who are paying their insurance to receive all that for their health. According to regulatory filings, Mr. Thompson owned about 20 million in UnitedHealthcare Group shares. So those of you who are unfamiliar with, and sorry if you see me, I'm looking down, I'm looking at my phone, looking at the notes that I prepped for this podcast. So another thing that is important to note is that when it comes to CEO compensation, it is outlandish in America. So CEOs make like millions upon millions of dollars. But what they do is they get paid out in shares. So shares of the company, stock in the company, and not have an actual salary. And the reason being is that when you have an actual salary, you can get taxed. Big whoop-de-doo, big surprise there. So for everyone who is working a normal job in America, you get taxed. You have to pay taxes at the end of every single year on your income. The higher income bracket you are, in this case, a guy's making $10 million a year, they were basically going to tax him half of his income. So he was going to be taxed $5 million essentially. I think anyone over $250,000 gets taxed 49%. Anyone under that gets taxed 35%, 33%, something around there. So to avoid being taxed, because everything is about how can we avoid taxes in America. So in order to avoid being taxed, what they do is they will get paid in stock, right? And stock cannot be taxed. They would then take a loan. Well, if you sell the stock, it will be taxed, capital gains tax, but they'll keep the stock. What they would do is they'll get a loan from the bank on the stocks, on the value of the stock. So in this case, if he can get a loan on the value of the stocks of 20 million, it's proof that he has the income or he has the assets to pay off the loan if he can. So they're more than happy to give him that loan because, you know, banks just want their money at the end of the day. So they'll give him a loan for the 20 million or give him a loan for the amount of the stocks. And once they give him that loan, they don't have to pay tax on that loan. So basically, if you're just being paid in stocks, you can get a loan, you can pay the loan off essentially at any time, but now I'm not taxed on that loan. So now I can get $10 million and not be taxed on it versus I get a salary of $10 million and I am taxed on it. Not only that, a lot of CEOs would like take a very low salary, like $1 or something, just to show like, hey, you know, I'm not in it about the money, but it's to fool people who are unfamiliar with like the tax system or the compensation system for the elites in America. So that's just like a little background into his total compensation and why him owning so much stock in a company was so important. So UnitedHealthcare Group, in late September, the Bloomberg reported in April that he was one of several company executives who sold shares before the Justice Department antitrust investigation was disclosed to investors. About $50 million were from Brian Thompson's case. So what that means is that when you work for a company in America and they give you stock, there's certain times where the company and the laws and regulators would not allow you to sell the stock that you have in the company, because it could be considered or viewed as insider trading. So just to say, if you knew something was about to happen that's really bad in the company, or the company is performing not well, or the company is going to like shoot up the stock price, etc., if you were to offload your stock, then it would be considered insider trading because you knew the stock price was going to shoot down, so you wanted to get rid of it as quickly as possible. That is illegal. And in the case of this, the specifics of why he sold off $15 million, I'm not quite sure. They tried to do research on that, but they didn't give that information away. But it was probably because maybe the stock was going to shoot down, and to sell off the stock now, they don't have to freaking worry about taking losses on that stock later. A lot of people do this. A lot of executive companies, a lot of lawmakers, unfortunately, people in Congress, people in the Senate, they do this. And a lot of the times you just get a slap on the wrist. This should be punishable by imprisonment. You know, this is definitely breaking the law. You should be, you know, thrown in prison for this. But a lot of the times these guys just get a slap on the wrist. Like, oh, just pay a fine of like fucking $500 or a fine of, you know, a couple thousand. We'll call it a day. Which is another way in how they cheat the system, unfortunately. But to go over some other instances as to why people freaking hate insurance companies in America, and specifically why they hated the UnitedHealthcare Group so much. So in 2024, the average healthcare insurance premium for families carried a price tag of $25,000 a year. So basically, insurance was running you $25,000 a year. While single workers paid an average of $8,900, representing 6 to 7% increase from year after year. So it's steadily increasing in price year after year as well, which is a staggering amount already as it is. The data shows that since the year 2000, the rise in healthcare insurance premiums have outpaced inflation for all but a handful of years. So basically what that means is that every single year there's inflation, and there's inflation as far as like the overall price of things. So things gradually becoming more expensive, and your salary is what's supposed to happen is to keep up with that inflation. This is I'm talking about a freaking murder, but this is more economics than anything. So everything in America is about money. That's why, one way, shape, or form. So as the years go by, things naturally will start to increase. The cost of things will increase. That's why, milk is not 5 cents like it was back in the 50s anymore. What's supposed to happen is that your income is supposed to steadily increase with the inflation. So as inflation goes up, your income goes up so that it balances itself out. So inflation percentage-wise occurs 4% every single year. So everything goes up by 4% every single year gradually. And for your salary, it only goes up 2%. So salaries are not catching up with inflation, unfortunately, which is a whole different topic outside of this that we can get to on another podcast. Another episode. But what this is saying is that strictly just for insurance, it's going up every single year by a percent. Basically only just a handful of years it didn't go up, but every single year it's gradually getting more and more and more expensive. On top of everything else in America getting more and more and more expensive, and on top of your wages not keeping up with those inflation. So that's why this is such a huge issue in America for those who are not American. So aside from rising healthcare insurance costs, Americans are also expressing anger over denial coverage. So we evaluated back in 2021 and found that 1 in 5 claims were basically being not covered. So you would pay your insurance for coverage, and 1 out of 5 times, basically they would not cover the costs of you going to the hospital, you going in an ambulance, you getting a procedure, you visiting the doctor, etc. There are studies that found denial rates varied. So there's multiple insurance companies in America. UnitedHealthcare Group is only one of them. It's the largest, but only one of them. And the denial rates tend to vary between each and every single insurance provider, essentially. But the highest is being UnitedHealthcare Group. So the biggest insurance company also has the highest amount in denial claims. Go figure. There's some that are as low as 2%, and there's others that are high as 49%. So you see there's a big gap there. So depending on your insurance, you either get coverage all the time, or there's a 50-50 chance you roll the dice, you might not even get covered for your doctor's visit. More insurance companies are starting to use AI to review claims and issue denials. So previous to this, in order for something to be denied, it was an actual person who has to sit there, review the claim, and determine whether or not it's going to be either paid for by insurance companies or is going to be denied. Now, in utilizing AI, you can kind of just have a hands-off approach. There's no human touch there. There's no emotion that's going there. When it comes to the insurance industry as a whole, the reason why it hits home so much because it's involving health. It's involving you. It's involving, essentially your life, whether or not you live or die. So that's why everyone was so heated regarding like insurance costs and insurance denial rates in America, because like literally a lot of this stuff is life or death. A lot of people have died because their insurance was denied for one way, shape, or form, or one reason, shape, or form. But in utilizing AI, you take out that human compassion component. You're just letting a machine dictate whether or not something will be accepted or denied, which the AI denial rates have been apparently through the roof. So it said that they had a AI-based system to review these claims, and apparently the AI system was very, very faulty at best. So essentially they knew they had a shitty AI and that was denying more things than it should have, but they didn't do anything to fix that AI, if you will. And all AI is just like additional coding and data, etc. So they knew they had a faulty system. It was denying more claims than it was approving. And they didn't do anything about it, because if you deny more claims, you receive more money / save more money. That's the reason why they didn't improve upon their faulty system, which they knew was faulty, because it was, at the end of the day, making them more money, going back into the American way. So from what Luigi Mangione said and what was going around, apparently he said that he did it because like he was outraged as to the overall healthcare insurance industry. I don't think he even had UnitedHealthcare, which is the crazy part. So when you look at a technical standpoint, like Brian Thompson technically, didn't do anything to him because he didn't utilize UnitedHealthcare, so it couldn't have affected him in any way. But again, it's the biggest healthcare provider. It's the one that's fucking over people the most. So that would kind of influence him to take these actions. Not only that, but I think his mom had a lot of healthcare related issues growing up, and they had like a lot of like claim denial and that kind of stuff. So maybe that also triggered his response into, killing the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. The one thing I would say that was the most disturbing is that we all know the healthcare system is fucked. Like, it's not a good system whatsoever. We kind of have to nuke it from the ground up and either, rebuild it as a whole or just entirely get rid of it and just have free healthcare, which we are the most richest country in the world. Why don't we do that? It's fucking sad. But I just lost my point because how annoyed I was at the insurance and healthcare system as it is. I completely lost it. I was so annoyed at why we don't have free healthcare. And part of that is because when it comes to, other first world countries, one, they have some kind of form of free healthcare. Not only that, their life expectancy rate is much higher. The US is much lower, and on top of that, we have more wealth than any other country in the world. It really doesn't make sense of why we're relying on this faulty system so much or for so long. And they've lobbied our politicians and our senators, etc., to continue on this process. So they're in the back pockets with the decision makers of America. So it looks like it's not going to change anytime soon. Remember where I was going to say now, perfect segue. Basically, the sentiment behind this was there was two sides, basically. Most Americans, whether it was Democrats or Republicans, they didn't give a fuck. So they didn't give a fuck as far as the murder goes. They didn't give a fuck about Brian Thompson. So the fact that Brian Thompson was murdered for his actions, essentially, they were kind of happy about it. There was a lot of sentiment especially online, not necessarily out in the streets or in person, but a lot of people were just like, yo, fuck that guy. Like, he was a terrible human being. Like, he perpetuated the problem. He was not a good person, etc. So a lot of people just, outright didn't care about him or, say he deserved to die. And there was a complete other side, and now the common American was thinking this to some degree. There were some that were like, I don't know if he deserved to die, but like his actions kind of caused this. It is what it is. So kind of more of in a neutral stance. Then the other side, which was basically the media side and the elite side, which was that this is horrible. We can't have vigilante justice. But not only that, there was no acknowledgement into the faulty system of insurance companies or healthcare as a whole. It was just, we gotta protect our CEOs. That was the one thing that really showed the most, which they outright said it. We have to protect our CEOs. The governor of New York created like an emergency hotline specifically for CEOs if they're feeling threatened or want to talk about what's happening, etc. So, which just goes to show you, what the sentiment is as far as like the upper class in America or the elites of America. It's not, we should probably fix this system because we don't want to continue dying. It's not. We gotta protect our own as much as possible. We gotta protect the elites as much as humanly possible. The system can stay as it is. We're not going to change it, but we got to protect us. We can't be dying for our own decision making, which is sad, unfortunately. And that's still the sentiment, unfortunately. And the media is not talking about how faulty the system is, just that we got to protect the higher ups. There are a few, of course, senators, congressmen that says this system is trash. We got to either do away with it or completely redo it. Some of them didn't outright say that Brian Thompson deserved to die, but they said that something along the lines of you can't fuck over people purposely for literally decades and expect there not to be retaliation. What you're doing is wrong. There's so many instances where there's people who have died because their coverage was denied. So they paid insurance every single month for the hopes that when the time comes, they would be covered, and they were denied for whatever way, shape, or form, which has caused or led to their death. And everyone has stories like that. Like everyone has a claim denial story that's like, why the fuck wasn't this accepted? Like, why wasn't this covered? Like, I paid you guys every single month and you guys are not going to cover me. Just that in and of itself is kind of crazy when you really, really think about it. You pay an insurance company, you pay a company every single month out of pocket, and they don't give you coverage. It's like, why am I even paying you at this point? Like, what's even the point in doing this? Like, well, what's the point of this system if I'm just going to pay and nothing's going to happen? That's the real reason why people were so outraged, and people were so honestly happy that Brian Thompson died, unfortunately. One other thing that I've seen that in doing my research, primarily the big, multimedia companies, they were kind of trying to paint Brian Thompson in a good light. They were trying to say he was an outstanding citizen. He was a great husband, even though he didn't live with his wife, and they lived in entirely two different homes down the street from each other. He was a good father. He was trying to fix the system, which he was outright literally exploiting the system. Here's the thing, right? When it comes to CEOs, they don't do much. I got to be honest with you. I know CEOs. They don't do that much. What they do is basically they would talk to the CFO. It's the person in charge of finance. Person in charge of finance would talk to the other people who work in finance. They relay stuff to the person in charge of finance. The person in charge of finance will relay it back to CEO, says, we should do this. CMO, person who is in charge of marketing, would talk to the other people below him in marketing. People in marketing said, hey, we should do this. This would be beneficial to the company. They tell the person in charge of marketing. Person in charge of marketing tells CEO, hey, we should do this. Basically, the CEO would just listen to ideas all day of what the company should do, what the company shouldn't do, and then they would make the decision regarding what the company should and or shouldn't do. Now, I'm not trying to downplay the role of a CEO. It is an important role. That decision can literally make or break the company. So it's not like to be taken lightly. It's not like their decision making is going to like do nothing to the company. Like oftentimes it either makes or breaks a company. But it's not like they're working. It's not like they're like a brain surgeon and behind a knife for 16 hours, or like they're working construction, is grueling, etc. They're really not doing any of that stuff. Yeah, they may work late because going to meetings and stuff, but they're literally just talking to shareholders all day and just gathering input. So it's not, or they travel a lot to their shareholders or whatever. So it's not like they're exactly working, the most hardworking people in the world. Yeah, they are working, but it's not like, they're doing that much, especially CEOs nowadays. CEOs nowadays, it's just, when we think of, CEOs of back in the day, they moved up the company ranks. They remained a CEO for their entire tenure with the company. They eventually retire, etc. They try to grow the company as much as possible, etc. That's not the case with CEOs nowadays either. When it comes to CEOs nowadays, a lot of them are jumping from company to company. What they will do is they'll stay at a company for like 4 or 5 years. They'll jump to another company. The reason why they'll jump to another company is that they'll be paid out in stock. Once they're effectively in the position of power, which a CEO could do basically anything in the fucking company, the only people that can fire the CEOs are the board, which the board are major shareholders of the company. So if the board doesn't fire you, you can just fucking sit there forever, essentially. So they'll go into the company. Their main agenda, since they're paid in stock, is how can I raise this stock? Because if I raise this stock, my stock would go up. The money I have in this company would go up. So they'll devise ways on how to raise the stock. Typically, is either one or two things. One, massive layoffs. So they start laying off a bunch of people because the most expensive thing for a company is salaries, unfortunately. People's salaries, people's livelihoods. So they'll start cutting costs any way they can, which most of the time when the company's trying to cut costs, they are cutting salaries, they're cutting jobs. So people are being fired, and then they would figure out a way into buying back their own stock, etc. So to try to generate as much revenue as possible, but not have that revenue go to the workers, not have that revenue go to like primarily research development and making their company and or product the best that it can be to really compete into the market. What they'll do is they would buy their own stock. So a company can literally invest in its own stock, which artificially inflates the price of the stock. So it doesn't make the company better. It doesn't make the product better. Actually, the product gets worse over time if the company continues to do this because the product is not progressing in any way, shape, or form. They're just buying their own stock, artificially inflating the price of the stock. And then the CEO would eventually either be fired or leave the company. Yeah, technically he made the company more money, but he didn't make the company better. He just manipulated the system. And that's what CEOs are doing all the time in America. Like if you really did the research as far as finance goes, you would see that that's a trend of CEOs just leaving after 4 or 5 years and just them having a trail of doing that. So that being said, the reason why I wanted to harp on the CEO position so much is that you know what's going on in the company. Like he knew it was a faulty AI system. He knew they were denying more claims than any other insurance company out there. So to say that he was completely innocent and he was just doing his job, which is a narrative that's out there right now, is entirely false. He wasn't just doing his job. He knew the bad stuff the company was doing. He was okay with it and he perpetuated it because it was making him and the company money. Now, to say that he deserved to die for that, it's an entirely different thing. But to say that he was just doing his job, that's not entirely false. Or to say that he was trying to better the industry, is not true whatsoever. He was manipulating the industry. I don't want to say perpetually making it worse, but he definitely wasn't making it better. So that being said, on a final conclusion of this episode, did Brian Thompson deserve to die? Part of me wants to say kind of, because it's like, bro, like you, like, look what you're doing. Like you guys expect no retaliation from it. I don't think he necessarily deserved to die, to be entirely honest with you, but I can see why his actions has led to his death. Here's the thing, man. You can't cheat the American people and you can't cheat the system for literally decades upon decades upon decades. Everyone knows they're getting fucked in this regard. Americans are getting fucked everywhere right now. It's like a fucking gangbang. You don't know where you're getting fucked from, but you're getting fucked. So the Americans knew the healthcare system was a shithole. Americans knew that they were manipulating us and taking advantage of us. So you can't continue to do that for literal decades and expect no retaliation from your decisions. And it was crazy because that's the one thing that was shocking about it too, is that they were shocked. They were like, how can they do this to us? How can they murder a CEO? It's like, look at what you guys are doing. You know, you guys are taking advantage of us for years and expect nothing to happen. So do I think he deserved to die? No, not necessarily. Do I see why he died or understand why he died? Totally understand. I get why the dude perished, but yeah, that's the insurance industry in America in a nutshell, unfortunately. I know this was supposed to be about death and we got into finances and economics a lot, but when you dive into any topic regarding, you know, any facet of America, either it be companies, culture, etc., always comes down to money one way, shape, or form, unfortunately. If you're American, you know that. If you're not American, then you would definitely come to know that. You're listening to me or, you know, just indulging in some kind of American-related media. Right now, Luigi Mangione is serving trial, so they're going to, and he did this huge perp walk too. So when they caught him, they made him like walk on television. It was so dramatic and shit. Like it was entirely unnecessary. It's like them trying to, you know, like send a message, sort of say. He's going to be tried for murder one. So getting into freaking the judicial system in America. So if you get tried for murder one, that means that there was like terroristic actions that you have taken. So basically, they're trying to say that, hey, he was a terrorist to America. Like he tried to, change lawmaking or change something through like a terroristic action, which in this case would be killing the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. So they're trying to get him for that. That one is going to be extremely hard to do. I don't think they really have the grounds to do it. And the thing is with murder one is that there's no chance for parole and you can get the death penalty. So they're trying to push for murder one because they're trying to send a message. If they get murder one, he'll be in prison for the rest of his life, or they can essentially give him the death penalty and do away with him and try to do a life, for instance. It's going to be tough trying to get him down for murder one, so they might just get him down for murder. If they get him down for murder, he's still going to serve time. He's just going to serve time for a very long time, and he most likely will not get the death penalty. And that's, of course, if he's tried as guilty, because you're innocent until you're proven guilty in America. The only thing is it's going to be hard for him to get off as innocent. Maybe they might plead innocent by insanity. So basically, he's technically guilty, but he's crazy, so we can't try him because he's not at the right state of mind. I don't think that's going to work either if you read his manifesto and how he's talking, etc. So he most likely is going to not win this case. Definitely when everything is all over, I'll make a second episode going over the judicial side of this crime and what the verdict ended up being. But right now it's still ongoing. It's going to be ongoing for the next couple months. It's probably going to be wrapped up by the end of the year. I think he's going to be tried as guilty. I don't think he's going to get off. It'll be insane if he gets off. But he's definitely going to be tried for something. Murder one, probably not, but for murder, most likely. But we'll keep you posted on that one. But yeah, this is the Pitre podcast, going over the UnitedHealthcare murder, also economics and the social structure of America. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.